Hello, hello. Yeah, good
Hello, Mike.
morning.
Yes. Welcome back, everyone, for the second day of the European Mentoring Summit.
Good morning. Yeah.
We hope you enjoyed your first day and that you gained new insights, that you met new people, that you have new ideas, wrote down these ideas. And yesterday we asked you a question.
Yes,
And it
through
was
the Imagina app.
in the Imagina app, in one word, what do you expect from this summit? And of course, we're curious of the results. You had a day to answer.
And
So
here-
let's see. What do we see, Fiona?
Here are the results from yesterday. We see networking. Of course, that's a thing. We are all here. The energy, we feel the energy. We felt it yesterday during the networking cocktail soirée. French experience. Nice. Okay, we will bring that. We'll
Yeah,
bring that.
I'm curious,
We have croissant already in the breakfast. So we had a little of a French experience.
On networking, of course. We saw it yesterday during the sessions on the rooftop bar.
Meeting, discover, inspiration. Talk about mentorat. Yes, of course, as well. This is the European Mentoring Summit, the 5th edition. Well, thank you all for your contributions. And we're going to continue asking you questions through the Imagina app. But now what we wanted to ask you, because it's the morning, we had a long day yesterday, we're going to have another long day today. And what we want to ask you is to connect with your fellow participants now. So I'm going to ask you to turn to your left neighbor and share one takeaway, if you have one. Otherwise, another one. So turn to your left neighbor and share one takeaway you had from any session you attended yesterday. Let's have a minute for that.
Nice.
Nice. Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So let's move on to our next speakers.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you,
for
everyone.
sharing.
Let's move on to our next speakers. They need no introduction. They are all among you, everywhere in the room. But before we move on, I want to ask you, please, people, to...
Many things to share. We will continue on sharing. Let's come back to the room. Let's come back. And let's hear our next speakers, right?
Actually, yes, and they are amongst you, because you need to look around you. Where will they be? Please, see for yourself.
Who is our next speaker?
What does mentoring mean to me? To me, mentoring means a person who shares knowledge and experience and provides guidance. I have a mentor who I can talk to for hours. How did it happen? We share the same interest in life and work. For me, a relationship is a bond of trust. She motivates, inspires, and guides me in taking steps in the right direction, like how to start at a university. I met her at a network event of our mentor program. We talked, laughed, and exchanged number. I matched myself to her. So to me, mentoring goes beyond transferring knowledge and experience. It feels natural. She understands me. It feels like family to me. This is the key to strong mentoring, a feeling of belonging and understanding.
Hi, I am Milota, an international student from Slovakia. I consider myself a natural mentor. Since childhood, it has been my passion to help people I care about achieve their goals and actually bring something positive into this world. I'd say it started when I was 6 and taught my friend how to swim. I still remember her excitement and happiness when she realized she could swim by herself. Seeing my friend happy gave me this unexplainable feeling. You do it once, and then you want to do it again and again. Moving on with my life, I try to be there for everyone all the time, listen, advise, and advocate for them in any kind of situation. Doing this gave me motivation and strength. One of my main life goals is to contribute positively to this world, which I think is a goal of many young people. So give us more mentoring opportunities and more mentoring programs, which we can participate in as young mentors.
In my opinion, every single person has something to offer to society. Every person is gifted with talents, but not every person knows the talents. For me, mentoring is a push in the right direction to find out and develop talents. So, mentoring could be a key element in a person's life. As a student matchmaker for universities and vocational school students, I have experienced this every day. I learned that mentoring is not only for young persons with problems, but also for young people with ambitions. To apply for a mentor is courage, so I see. So, when young, ambitious people do that, they are an example for others. My goal is to spread the word about mentoring, so all young people find a way to mentors.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Quỳnh, and I come from Vietnam. I am a university student in the Netherlands. Before I came to Europe, I didn't know about, and I was never exposed to the term mentoring in any aspect of my life. When I started studying in the Netherlands, mentors helped me a lot with my school issues and other matters in my life. That was my first time I exposed to mentoring. I feel happy and worthy when I was not afraid to try new things, to learn and to develop. I desire to use this experience to bring mentoring to my home country, Vietnam, to more people, help them, and so that mentoring will be more popular and have more significant impact in my country.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Steffi. I'm from Germany. As an international business student who's passionate about marketing, I think that making mentoring more accessible for young people is crucial, especially considering that mentoring is a very niche industry. At the moment, often when we as young people talk about mentoring, it's usually connected to America, for example, in sports or business people who had mentors, but we never realized that there's so much mentoring around us, mentoring in Europe around us. And I also noticed that the focus on personal development is on the rise right now among young people. So using social media can spread awareness about mentoring, which is why I started a mentoring TikTok account to put mentoring in the spotlight, to connect people with mentors, and to encourage a culture of mentoring. Thank you.
Thank you. Big applause. Come join us on stage. Aren't we lucky to wake up with these beautiful stories? Good morning. Thank you all. Thank you all. Join us. And another big applause for them.
The students. Thank you. So, Steffi, tell us what's next for today.
So we're going to hear our next keynote speaker. Can I get a big applause for Jean Rhodes?
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Well done. Well done.
Speak about mentoring. And as we just heard from the young people, mentoring means very many things. So to be asked sometimes how effective is mentoring, I think it's important to really think about the history of mentoring and think about the beginning of mentoring. Here we have me and Sylvia Simon, the head of Mentor Europe, in 2016, just starting the European Center for Evidence-Based Mentoring in Leeuwarden. And I was just so honored and thrilled to be here at the very beginning, because the Center for Evidence-Based Mentoring in Europe then morphed into Europe mentor. And I just want to thank you all for inviting me here. I want to thank my family who's here and makes me extra nervous. And I'll begin by also expressing my gratitude toward those at the Center for Evidence-Based Mentoring in the US. I've published over 250 peer-reviewed journal articles on the topic of mentoring, and none of that would have been possible, of course, without incredibly talented students. You may know some of their names: Sarah Schwartz, Alex Wernz, Liz Raposa, Matt Hagler, Kirsten Christensen. Many of these you'll recognize their names when I show you some of the papers and articles and studies I've done with them. And it really does take a lot of people to do the kind of research that we're doing at the center all the time. So today, and I only have 25 minutes, so I'm going to try to cover over 30 years of research and 200 studies in 20 minutes. So please forgive me ahead of time for rushing, but you can always follow up with questions after. I'm going to talk about what is mentoring and how effective is it. We heard from different voices, but I have a feeling that each person, for them, mentoring might have been something different. How can we improve mentoring programs? And importantly, how do we balance quality with expansion of programs? And I think there's a lot of lessons to learn from the US because we kind of, in some ways, made mistakes as we tried to balance quality and quantity. And I think that there's some lessons there that we can take away. So, what is mentoring? Okay, this is a tough one. What is it? Everybody stood up and everybody said this is what mentoring is. We have a new TikTok account of mentoring, but what is it? And I think that's part of the problem. How could I possibly tell you how effective mentoring is if we don't understand how many ways mentoring can vary? It can vary, and as you look at this, think, where do I fit? Where does my program or my experience fit in this? Because, and this isn't even all of them. There's whether or not the mentor's paid. There's just an unlimited ways in which mentoring programs can vary, what age they are, and really importantly, if you look at the top, formal versus informal. That's one of the key things. The word mentor goes back to Odysseus and Homer's Odyssey and the whole idea of having this older person guiding you. But that's a natural mentor. What happens when we try to turn it into a program and try to take what feels like magic and create rules and structures and guidance around it? And then the hybrid approach, which we talked about yesterday with youth-initiated mentoring and flash mentoring, which I'll be talking about tomorrow with Dolores and our team, and all of these different things. But what I can tell you is that certain approaches are more effective than others. So this is what we know a little bit from the research, that all right, I'm going to go through these and as quickly as I can, but early adulthood appears to be a really crucial time developmentally to have a mentoring relationship. The research is, of course, there's no certainty. There's always exceptions. For example, Michael Karcher in Texas has a program with younger kids that has great effects, and Professor Tim Cavell does. But in general, programs that catch people at the transition to adulthood when they're trying to figure out what they want and they're really committed. When you take a young person, you put them in a mentoring program, we don't know, is it their parent that wanted them to be in it? How serious is this? A young person who's starting university, who's starting a new job, they need mentoring, they want mentoring. Technology assisted appears to be showing some very positive results because you can, there's this thing called fidelity, which is how close are you to the original model, and technology enables you to be very clear in how you're doing the mentoring. We know that moderate to high training and supervision. We know that, let's look at reach, that in general, programs that are, actually, I think I can do that. Programs that are more, what I would say, almost boutique programs that can really focus in on what it is they want to accomplish, as opposed to ones that are just big, anybody comes, whatever your problem or goal is, we'll take care of it. Those more non-specific programs tend to have a harder time getting strong effects. We have some research I'll show you about early intervention being maybe the sweet spot for mentoring programs. It's not so far gone that the person needs professional care or psychotherapy, but they actually have something they want to work on. They have a goal. And probably the thing that I wrote most about, I wrote a book called Older and Wiser, and if I could, I'd write one even older and even wiser, because we've been doing a lot of research since then to substantiate some of the things that were in that book, this goal-focused piece. And that's really one where the research is quite clear, that you need to go into the program with a goal in mind. You can't just say, I think I need a mentor, you know, because then we're trying to do too many things. It's like trying to throw a dart at targets that are all over the place. It's good to have one target that you're working on. And so I'm going to show you that this is not a very popular slide, but I have to show it anyway. This was me as I started to write Older and Wiser. I said, how effective are these programs that are large and not very specific, where anybody can come in and get a mentor versus a kind of a more goal-focused program? And you can see, you don't need to know what a meta-analysis is to know that an effect close to zero is an effect close to zero. It's not a very strong effect. If this was a clinical trial of a particular pharmaceutical, we would go back and we'd say, okay, let's fix this. Let's make this more effective. But we don't do that. We continue this friendship model, this non-specific model, forever. And I think that we are being unrealistic. We need goal-focused mentoring. And so when I looked at that and I compared it to programs that were more skills and goal-focused, you could see much stronger effect sizes. And I should tell you, I am guilty. For many years of my career, I said it's only about the relationship. It doesn't matter what the goal is. The goal actually pulls away from the relationship, which is the active ingredient. I still believe the relationship is crucial, but I do believe that there needs to be some focus. And once you have that focus, evidence-based tools to help you reach that focus. And so now I'm going to show you things since the book that kind of verify that. So remember those numbers I just showed you. It was, on one side it was close to zero, and the other side it was, you know, much larger. You see that if you do meta-analysis, which is kind of like what is the overall impact of mentoring, you see that those figures kind of meet in the middle, and we get a consistent effect size no matter how much research we do, no matter how much funding we put into mentoring programs. The effect of mentoring programs has stayed the same. It has stayed around the small side. We can do better than that. I come from the tradition, I'm a clinical psychologist, and when I was getting trained, it was very much the way we do mentoring in many programs. It was very like whatever the client comes in with, just talk to them about it. Maybe it's their mother, maybe it's whatever. And now I see clinical psychologists that we're training, and it's very goal-focused. It's what is it that they're going to work on? Let's get this done. Let's find the best tools to address that need right now. Those needs can change, but you always have a focus. And so, why have we gotten it so wrong for so long? I did tell Tracy from Canada that that was one of the topics of my paper. I promise not to spend too much time on this, but I think it's useful to understand how we got to the point where we just think putting people together without clear goals is okay. And I think that there's this confirmation bias that we have in our heads that mentoring works. And that's our belief. And then we only kind of cling to the facts that confirm that belief. We don't do this just with mentoring. We do this in life. We kind of go through life kind of confirming the biases or the beliefs we already have. And in this case, many of you saw that data that I just put up and thought, well, that's not true for me. That's not true for my program. That's not true. Because it goes against your confirmation, what you know to be true. There's a new book that also talks about other cognitive biases. It's called Magical Overthinking. It's a really fun book, but one of the things she talks about in this book is this illusory truth effect, and that is if you hear something enough times, you begin to believe it. So you hear mentoring works, mentoring works, mentoring works, mentoring, it's changed my life. Then all of a sudden you cannot find a counterfactual to that. That is going to be the truth. And then there's semantic overlap, and I'll just tell you that that is when you use the word mentoring so many different ways, then it's easy to confirm what you think. So if I'm using the same word to describe my college professor who changed my life, as a program that is set up for 6 weeks, they're both called mentoring, then we kind of like take that semantic idea of something that's really true, that a profoundly effective natural mentoring relationship applies to all mentoring. And so in some ways, we should have had a different terminology for what formal mentoring is. It's not quite the same. We also have underestimated the level of risk, particularly post-COVID, that many young people are facing. Mental health, economic, all sorts of things. And this is just one example. This is from work by Carla Herrera and Roger Jajorian and Tom Keller, who's in the audience. And they looked at almost 2,000 young people, and they found that about half of them were experiencing mental health challenges. And many of them are experiencing family risk and economic adversity. And this is serious. And these problems are not getting any better. And so we go in and we just have sort of general tools, and yet young people are really struggling. We need more specific tools. If I'm dealing with somebody who has a mental health problem, or maybe a problem behavior, or can't focus on their homework, I need the best possible tools to help them with that. This is a quasi-professional relationship. We're meeting once a week. I may not know this person very well. They're not family, but I'm here and I can help you. Let's bring the best possible tools and let's focus on what matters to you right now, that's getting in the way, or let's help you get that job, or whatever it is. But then what happens is we tell mentors that they don't need particular skills to be a mentor. You just need to show up. You just need to be a kind presence. And then they get, and some of the work of Professor Renee Spencer is here. She wrote a paper called It's Not What I Expected, which kind of tells it all. Like, they sign up to be a mentor, they get these, exuberant pictures, and then it's much harder than they thought. And then we have like a 40% attrition of mentors, which is, that's a lot of time and money and also hurt that could happen when a relationship ends early. So if you prepare the mentor with the best possible tools going in, they're going to have a much more successful experience. How can we improve mentoring? Okay, so this was a very influential, at least for me, paper by my colleagues Michael Lyons and Sam McQuillan and Laura Henderson, where they said, look, it's very important to have relationship quality. And I think sometimes that message gets lost, that relationship quality is essential. And Professor Julia Price is here, and Renee Spencer. They have done work on attunement, on empathy, also Patrick Dolan. There are great papers, not only from mentoring, but from the field of helping relationships, about the common factors in all helping relationships that need to be present for there to be any improvement. And those are trust and liking each other and humor and attunement, and all of those things are necessary, but you also have to have goal-focused mentoring. And more recently, my colleagues Sai Poon and Alex Wernz and I said that the best relationships are this combination of being goal-focused and having a strong relationship. When it's only goal-focused, there's a lot more tension in the relationship, as you might expect. When it's only relationship-focused, there's less tension, but there's less accomplishment. And so again, that kind of speaks to that. This is an interesting finding. It is most effective when it's delivered by credible, trained peers. Now, in this case, we did a meta-analysis, which, again, it's like where you combine all the studies on a particular topic. And in this case, it was cross-age peer mentoring. We wanted to see what is the effect of putting older peers with younger peers. And this is all the meta-analyses. Actually, we have a new one coming out on group mentoring and on college mentoring. Once we learned how to do meta-analysis, it's like a hammer and everything's a nail. I could go around and do another meta-analysis. But in any case, we did one on peer mentoring. And look at that, it's double the effect. Isn't that interesting, right? So overall, I showed you 0.21. Youth in foster care, you can imagine it's more goal-focused. It has a stronger effect. Cross-age, youth-initiated is up there, and then more targeted approaches. And but those were not evidence-based targeted approaches, if you're wondering. And so when I saw that effect, I thought, this can't just be that somehow young people are so much better at mentoring than older people. It's that we don't trust young people as much as older people, so we give them a lot more training and supervision. So what we're doing is we're picking up on a supervision effect more than a training, more than an age effect. And sure enough, when we went back to the data and we ran analyses for the level of training and oversight, you see that with low training and oversight, again, we're close to zero effects. It's under the conditions of high training and oversight that you get these great effects. So there is almost like if we have a Rosetta Stone, this is one of our hints here, that there has to be training, there has to be focus, there has to be oversight. When it focuses on specific challenges and goals. Now, I showed you the other studies, but Kirsten Christensen, one of my former doctoral students, who's now a professor in San Diego, said, look, let's look at whether it is targeted versus what we call friendship or non-specific, which is just let's get together and have a mentorship. And here we see that in every case, the blue is the more targeted. I'm having too much fun with this thing, and but you can see, it's either between double and triple the effects when it's more targeted. Okay, now this did not control for the level of evidence base, but you see stronger effects for the more targeted. And for things that we care about, it's triple the effect. Look, it's triple the effect for academic outcomes, mental health outcomes, social functioning. So there again, we see what's needed. Whoops, I'm going to go back. And then we say, okay, it's all good to be doing skill-focused, but what I've always felt is you don't have to be an expert, like a lot of mentors aren't expert in how to do this, that, or the other thing. If you have an evidence-based tool, the best role for a mentor is to help the young person practice that skill. So we did a meta-analysis on supervised practice, which is kind of a niche little meta-analysis, but we wanted to show that you learn skills more effectively when you have someone to practice them with. So if you think about a mentoring relationship, spend some of the time practicing a skill that that young person, whether it's preparing for a job interview, or learning how to meditate, or learning how to manage anger, whatever it is, spend some of the time practicing that. Just like any sport or anything, it's a great role for the mentor to be involved in that, because they don't need to be an expert. They just need to be present and giving encouragement. And so this is a paper that Tim Cavell and Chris Elledge did years ago, and at first I was like, I don't know about that, but now I do. Where he said, look, we need to move from the relationship is the intervention to the relationship as a context for targeted-based intervention. And that pretty much sums it up. He was ahead of his time. I've caught up, and I believe this. This is how we're going to get there. And I also believe that there is a role for technology in all of this. That if, for example, the young person is having mild depression, there are tools like Headspace for Kids, or there's something called Healthy Minds and Innovation. It's free. They're called technology-delivered interventions that the mentor and the mentee can do together, and it is evidence-based tools that they can use together depending on whatever issue they want. If it's learning math, there's Khan Academy. If it's whatever it is. And there's also manuals and online trainings. All of those things could be a joint activity that they do together, which delivers the intervention with more fidelity, with more closeness to how it was originally designed. And that's where one final thing is that we have been working on this for 5 years now, maybe 4 years, trying to figure out how to use technology to deliver interventions with fidelity. And this is, and I have to say, I think there's a future for AI in mentoring. So one of the things I wanted to say is that one of the things the AI can do is suggest evidence-based tools and responses to the mentor that they can then cut and paste and respond to their mentee with very, very good answers. So we've been feeding our AI with my entire corpus of research, as well as many of the studies I've talked about, as well as clinical psychology, cognitive behavioral therapy, as well as all sorts of other things, so that there's good answers right on tap for the mentor. And so finally, the third one is it helps people expand their social capital. And that is, you cannot think of that one relationship as the end, it's the beginning. And one of the things the mentor should be doing is helping that young person connect at all times and creating larger networks of social support. And a more recent study that Sarah Schwartz, one of my former students and wonderful colleague, and others you'll see on this list, have done is a large randomized study where we taught young people how to recruit social capital. And this was a randomized controlled trial. Half of them didn't have this course, the other did. We taught them everything involved. Why is a mentor valuable? How do I find mentors? How do I continuously find them? How do I manage rejection? How do I talk about my interests in a brief way? That kind of thing. And it improved a lot of outcomes. Okay, getting to what I was supposed to talk about, Giesbert, is how do we balance quality and expansion? I would say scale with fidelity. That sounds really nerdy, but it's just the basic idea is as you grow, make sure everything is as good as it can possibly be, as close to the original model that was effective. Fidelity is how close it is to what it was, how it was originally designed. I'm going to just say something more about that. We have the example of Apple and Steve Jobs, his obsession with quality, that you could grow that company, but only if he was completely obsessed with every detail. And I believe that same thing is true all over Europe. Look at Hermes. It's a global brand. Louis Vuitton, there are great examples of scaling globally, but maintaining an obsession with quality. That's what we need to do. We can't just scale for the sake of scaling. Oh, we've got this many people. And that's what America did. That's what we did wrong. We threw down these gauntlets and we said, we need to have every kid needs a mentor by this year. And no, we need to take each individual relationship, put it on a pedestal and say, how will expanding affect our ability to deliver quality every step of the way? We also need to get out of just inviting people like me, and this is not very self-serving, to these conferences. There are fields out there like mental health, where there is so much interesting work happening. There's this guy at Yale, Alan Kasdan, who just put out a study where he showed everyday things that have strong evidence. And it's getting outside, doing yoga, exercising, sleeping, and he showed the effect size for all of these things. Like, there's just so many interesting studies that mentors could be learning from. And beyond that, there's CBT, there's all sorts of stuff. We need to leverage technology and data. Every time a mentor-mentee fill out a questionnaire, we can link that to other data and we can figure out how to help them and to provide a more personalized approach to mentoring. And we need to continuously evaluate. We don't just stop and now it's done. We have to continuously improve, which is what the best companies do and what we need to do. So again, it's a very confusing universe of mentoring out there, but I would say this, that really the three things that matter when you think about your program is where are you on those things? Are you more toward the end of prevention or more toward mental health? Just figure out what skills is your program trying to impart and get the very best of that. Where are you on the risk continuum? Which group are you wanting to work with? We go from primary prevention to really rehab and everything in between. Where are you on that continuum? And what is your special population? What research is out there to help you understand that? Those three things, if you can figure those three out, you're really going to have a stronger program. But don't just use the word mentoring. You have to kind of think, all right, this kind of mentoring. And that's it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jean. Let's sit here together. Come, join me. Join me for the Q&A. You join me as well, Isbert? Okay,
Yeah.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
Let's
I'll
go, the three of
moderate
us.
the questions from the
Perfect.
audience.
Here's a little water if you need so. Thank you. Let's have some minutes with Jean and have some questions from the app or from the audience. We'll have some microphones running, if I'm not mistaken. Do we have microphones in the room ready? Perfect. Can I have a microphone over there? Behind you, just behind you. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. My name is Lucia. I am from Slovakia, and we run a program called Buddy, which will be 18 years old, almost grown up this year. And thank you, Jean, so much for the summary. It's exciting every time to hear your summary of evidence and reflect on what we've learned over the years. And what you were presenting, this balance between the relationship and the goal, we had a lot of headaches of which one is important over the years. And where we got to, what I like to say, it's kind of a dance. It's a dance between that relationship and goal orientation. We work with very high at-risk youth, children and youth in foster care. And so our coordinators, supervisors were often pushing back, right? To say, well, no, we can't push them for goals because they'll go away. And so our conclusion has been it's both, but dancing, okay, now we can do a bit of that goal orientation, and now we have to go back to the relationship. And now again, so I don't know if you've come across this in your research, but it would be very interesting to hear about that.
Thank you.
And then also in terms of the growth, that's the other one where we got to the conclusion. We were criticized a lot that we're growing slow because we're matching only about 20 children a year. But for us, it's quality, it's quality, it's quality because of child protection and all the rest. So I'm also very pleased to hear that. And I'd like to support everyone else to not to be afraid to grow slow. But again, thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Couple reactions. And I will say that during the break, there's other people who can speak to this as well in the audience. But I will say that in certain cases, the relationship is the goal. And that is if a young person, for example, someone in the foster care system, has had so much disappointment and so much trauma in their past, just getting to the point where they can trust is the relationship. I mean, is the goal of the relationship. If they can begin to trust someone, they're having what's called a corrective experience. And now they can begin to trust more people. And so I think that that's a really important distinction, that it's not always let's jump into the goal. The second point I want to make is that the relationship always comes first. I remember talking this through with someone, Michael Karcher, a professor in the US, and he said, yes, you should have tools and you should have all sorts of things to help you, but the relationship comes first and you need to know when to drop the prop. Drop whatever it is that's propping up this relationship and focus on building the relationship and building it with humor and liking each other and trusting each other, because without that, no one wants to take the risk to practice a job interview or do any of those things, that you need to have a basic trust and liking first. And, you know, it is funny to talk about slow growth. I always think of my European partners, and when I come to Europe, how quality is so much more present in the products and in the food and in the wine and in everything. And so, of course, it makes sense that it's present in mentoring as well.
Thank you. We have another question here. Gloria, yeah, please, microphone. Oh, perfect, Steffi. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jean. I'm Gloria from the Umbrella Organization for Social Mentoring in Germany, and also a researcher, actually. And I have two questions for you. One is pretty short, because what we see from German studies, when you said at the beginning that mentoring is most effective in early adulthood, we see that it actually is most effective always when it comes to transitions,
yes,
from elementary school to high school, from school to work, whether you can agree with that. And the second one is about the effects and relationship-oriented versus goal-oriented, because what we actually see from studies in Europe, in Germany, also the UK, is that actually the relationship, especially if you ask the mentees, for them is the most important outcome. The ability to have a good relationship, to learn to have a good quality relationship with an adult that they need, especially when it comes to mental health. So I was wondering whether, on the one hand, we see maybe a difference from Europe to the US, because maybe how we do mentoring in Europe is different from how mentoring is done in the US, we also have to think about how we actually do the research about mentoring, and have to be more interdisciplinary, talking about participatory research methods in order to also shake things up when it comes to how we actually assess the effects.
Thank you for that question. Well, actually, I did a study with my colleague Oscar in the audience, and I wrote this up recently in the Chronicle of Evidence-Based Mentoring, but there are some major differences between American and European programs. that would actually favor European programs because they tend to be more around transition, either transition as a newcomer immigrant coming to this country learning new skills or transition to and through college. Most of the major programs are focused on college. And there's other differences that kind of favor that group. Now, talking about skills versus relationship, one thing I want to say is that they're not necessarily in opposition to each other. They actually, focusing on something meaningful to a young person and not just sort of, hey, how you doing? Really digging in and learning how to help them on something can actually strengthen the relationship and actually keeps the mentor more engaged. I spent a year as a match support specialist at a mentoring program, and I saw that when there was progress, when there was a real focus to the relationship, the mentor was much more engaged. Often the reason they quit is because they feel like they're not making a difference, that it just is like and so having that goal focus is not necessarily a bad thing. We kind of think, oh, it should be this or this. It's both, obviously. And then as far as the research goes, can you repeat that question about the research?
Yeah, because when you talk about effects and do the meta-analysis, I know that's mainly from psychology, the field of psychology here in Germany or in Europe. We see studies from economy, social work, health, et cetera, and also interdisciplinary approach, participatory research methods when it comes to actually how can we do research that is actually target group oriented, that involves kids or mentees in the right way. So maybe we should ask ourselves the questions whether we have the right methods to do so, and whether we also have to do different research designs to better assess the effects.
Well, one of the things is that there's just so many different ways to find out more about mentoring. There's qualitative, there's mixed methods, there's these large meta-analyses, there's randomized controlled trials, and it really depends on exactly what you want to know and where you're going with that. And some of the best work is coming out of the Netherlands and elsewhere for that, in terms of how to study mentoring. But you also mentioned the interdisciplinary nature of this. We tend to be in our own little silo. And, as I've moved in more toward workforce development mentoring, there's just such a huge amount of work coming from economists, coming from researchers. Even at BU, Professor Kathy Cram has done incredible work on workforce development, on how to make a good match, on all of these things. And our goal is to get outside our silo, and that's why I said we need to pull from adjacent fields. We need to be much more willing to kind of cross disciplinary boundaries to learn about best practice.
Jean, we have a question from the audience, from Carmen Ringler, and it's about informal mentoring. She asked, would you say that mentoring programs that start in the informal area are less effective because the focus is probably not the same as with formal mentoring programs? But studies also show significant positive effects on mentees in the informal area. So how does this relate quality to informal mentoring?
Yes, this is the nature of research. You just captured it, Giesbert. It's on the one hand, it's less effective, but on the other hand, it's more effective. That you will find no matter what, because it always comes down to the particulars of what it is you're looking at. In general, formal mentoring is much more common. A guy named Robert Putnam from Harvard found that it's 80% of all mentoring is informal mentoring, that those relationships on average are 8 years longer, that they're much more just sort of consequential for young people, and that we need to expand the opportunities of young people to be able to find and connect, because that's not you would think, well, if mentoring's that easy to happen naturally, then why do we even need programs? And it's because it's a resource that is unequally distributed. More marginalized people are much less likely to find formal mentors. There are networks for men, there are networks for more privileged people. What someone calls resource hoard. We mentor hoard. We save the mentoring for our own children, and that we need to kind of figure out how can we expand opportunities for formal mentoring. I would say that for informal mentoring, I would say formal mentoring, the future is in making it even more professional. That we have this huge gap in access to evidence-based care, whether it's mental health care or career development. And we shouldn't just be squandering that hour that someone is willing to volunteer without the very best tools, because with the best tools, mentors can be like paraprofessionals, formal mentors. They can take that hour and deliver as effectively as a well-trained PhD level therapist. The research is clear that with training and supervision, paraprofessionals are not only as effective, in many cases they're more effective. And so that's where we kind of have to think about the differences between these two relationships and what the implications are in terms of the strategies we use.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jean. We're going to stop the questions now. I'm sorry, Tim, but your question, we're going to ask her the question later because Jean is staying with us for the next panel.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jean. Sure. And thank you also, Mentor Pro, for being one of our sponsors.
Okay, Jean, you can remain seated. And Fiona, will you join us or will you...
Yes, I think we have a question
yeah,
for the audience.
we have a question for the audience. So please, people, I would like to ask you to go to the Imagina app while I'm putting back my microphone.
Yeah, you can go to the Imagina app. You need help? No?
No, I
Fine,
think
good.
it's okay. Thank you.
So we're very curious because we're going to follow on a panel about quality with Jean and 3 other panelists. And we're very curious about what do you struggle the most with when finding this balance between quality and quantity. So please take your phones.
And is it staying true to the vision of the program? Recruiting the right team? Respecting the time required for each step of your program, or finding the right partners and stakeholders?
Take your time. Answer the questions. And I'm sure that with the next panel, we will find the answers.
Yes, thank you.
And I think we can move on.
Yes.
I will leave you to it.
Can I get a big applause for our next 4 speakers? Tanguy Tolle, Ute Voorts, Marina Claverias, and Jean Rhodes. Thank you. So you can sit on this. So, welcome. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Ute, you work for 11. Tanguy, you work for, you're the Deputy Director of AFF. Marina, you're from the Spanish umbrella organization, and Jean Rhodes, we just introduced you. So this panel examines the balance between quality and quantity when disseminating mentoring programs. So let's move on to the first question. And this question, Marina, what does quality mentoring look like for you? And what is the best when it comes to quality mentoring?
This umbrella organization from Spain, we try to do research and also work together, all of the small organizations that be part of this second one, to be able to think about how quality in different kind of programs has to be and has to look like. So we develop a quality seal, the MC quality seal, that make some standards from evidence-based mentoring and the evidence target that in the United States has developed. And for us is, for one, first of all, what evidence talk about, what the phases of a program are. For us, it's very important to make able that every phase is respected. The selection one, the training one, the following up one, and the evaluation one, everyone. And also be able to make the goals happen with indicators that make able to do an evaluation of every program. So for us, it's these kind of elements that are very important to able to speak about quality.
Okay, so that resonates with Jean's work, being goal-focused and respecting the phases of the program, staying true to the goals of the vision. Ute, would you respond to that?
Yeah, well, I'm in the position of being a funder for mentoring. I work for an organization who funds, among others, 4 of the largest mentoring programs in Germany. And quality for us, of course, we accompany the organizations very closely and discuss about quality quite a lot. I think for those programs, at least, the quality standards, which were inspired by the US research, have become quite strong. So to basically, pay attention and very carefully observe the different steps of acquisition and matching and preparing and supervising and closure. And we have the luxurious situation that we also funded big research with these organizations and for their mentoring programs. So there's 2 RCTs for 2 of the programs, one for Baloo and Do, and one for Rock Your Life. And with this research, which has been going on for some years, and both have been published in good journals, we know that the causal evidence, or we have the causal evidence of these programs. And now, of course, the focus is different for the programs. It's to how to stay with the standards that they have used back then, and how to replicate the program, sort of in relation to that situation back then. And yeah, maybe until here. That's a sign. I pass on to you, right?
Yes, thank you very much. So I'm curious, so the evidence gave you new insights on how to move forward with the program. What did this mean for the practitioners? Yeah, sorry, Silla, and then thank you. Sorry, Tangi.
Well, for example, for Rock Your Life, actually, the RCT showed that they had quite a wide variety of youth from socioeconomic disadvantaged situation. And the RCT showed very clearly that when the youth are very disadvantaged, the effects are much higher than for the other ones. So they compared the 2 levels. Yep. And for the program, it said it meant they have to change their focus on finding youth. They have to focus on these very disadvantaged youth. And of course, it's quite different in the reality. You know, when you speak to young people and you find young people who are interested in mentoring, do you really want to say, no, you don't fit into our target group, we can't serve you? Or do you find the funding and have the means to even do more matches and then include these as well as the others? But of course, it's always the question, do we want large effects for everyone, or, so it's kind of a trade-off at some point. But that was one of the things that changed through the research. And of course, many other things changed as well, because they know now what their impact is and how they can work with it towards funders, towards scaling, and so on.
Thanks. So you could say you became the programs became more targeted for the specific groups that you mentioned.
You mean the program is more targeted?
Yeah, because of the evidence showed that it was more effective if you focus at the more
for the target group, it was.
Yeah.
For the program itself, it was basically looking at does the program as we do it so far. So one is focused on informal learning, the one for elementary school kids, and the other one is focused on the transition to work. And they basically stick with their program and their idea and their goals, because they found out the effects are amazing. They're huge and they are long-lasting, actually. That's something that you mentioned yesterday, Jean, that you find that it's not long-lasting, and in Germany we don't find it. But they last for 6 years, 7 years, 8 years. It's really amazing.
Thank you. Tangi, would you please respond to that?
Yeah, thank you. So, first of all, I want to apologize for my English.
No problem.
Okay, just not only my accent, but also my vocabulary. So maybe I won't be as precise as I would like to be. But for us in AFEV, we organize 16,000 duos in France. The mentors most of them are students, and the mentees are children, pupils. And the first thing for us for quality of mentoring of quality is a meeting, is a relationship. I really agree with what you said just before. How to organize a good meeting, a good relationship between the mentor and the mentees. This is all the question for us. And the pair needs to meet regularly. We try to organize one meeting per week during 2 years. It's not always the case, we are not perfect, but this is what we want to do. And so it has to need to meet regularly and over in a long period. 2 years, it's quite long. This is our goal, and we think it's very, very it's good for the quality of the mentoring. Meeting at home also. With us, the mentors goes to the home of the mentees. So meeting at homes allows for a stronger form of connivance, and also a link with the parents, because the mentees are quite young. The role and the place of the parents are very important in the relationship. So this is also a big important for us. This meeting is a human affair, and everyone brings their own special qualities to do it. But of course, above this, there is all the supervision, all it's better when it's supervised, accompanied, and monitored, by the professional. And so it's also very important for us that the mentor could be, yes, accompanied and trained. So it's yes, the training and the follow-up are quality factors. And what we try to do also, finally, just as a quality factor, is to focus also not only on the mentees. Of course, the mentees is the goal of to be sure that he will be better at school and so on. But the mentor needs to be very follow-up also, and we need to not only the training how to do a good mentoring, but also which skills will he get, what will this experience will bring to him. And it's also very important to make a mentoring of quality, to be sure that the mentor has goal also to his action.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Jean, how does this resonate with your work?
Well, two things. One is you talk about how it's more effective with the more disadvantaged, and that is a finding that has been. You think of mentoring almost like a pendulum. The further it has to swing, the more effect it's going to have. So you actually will have stronger effects working with more disadvantaged, with higher risk young people, but you also have to bring to that not just anything, you have to bring rigor, and you talk about that. And I think about German engineering compared to American once again, and I'm like, of course you bring more rigor. And so that makes a lot of sense to me. And then, one of the things you were talking about was the bidirectionality, that it's not just for the benefit of the young person, but that mentoring can be enormously beneficial well, and that I think it's much more, and this is something that I found with the paper with Oscar, it's much more intentional in Europe, that you build into it, that there's going to be these reciprocal benefits. And we need to do more of that. We need to think about mentoring and the skills that you need to be a good mentor as a form of workforce development. That if you're learning these skills, this is something an employer would be very interested in. And if you can get certified, and if you can get, continuing ed units, whatever it is, that if we can think of it and bake in the bidirectionality, we're going to have a much more engaged mentoring workforce or volunteer workforce. And in the US, there was always a talk of kind of looking at the bidirectionality almost negatively, that you should have completely altruistic virtues and motivations if you're a mentor. You shouldn't be looking at how it could benefit you. But then the research says, no, when it's bidirectional, when there's some what we call egoistic motivations, like, oh, this will look good on my resume, or, oh, I'm getting paid to do this, there's actually more accountability and more benefit that goes both ways and goes to the child as well.
Thank you, thank you. So, I think we might have the answers to the question that we just asked, so maybe we can show them on the screen. The question to the audience: what do you struggle the most with when finding the balance between quality and quantity? 44% says respecting the time required for each step of your program. Well, Tanguy, that I think you mentioned that you're very systematic about your approach. So people, they mentioned this the most. Finding the right partners and stakeholders comes second. Interesting to see. Someone who wants to respond to these answers.
I think that also we try to figure out how to respect the phases of the program to make able that every step is it's on the right place. Sorry. So that every step that you are being able to do in every phase, it's the correct one to make able to be following up in the good place every relationship. So for me, it's also respecting the time required for each step and for each phase, with the focus on the goals and also on the relationships.
So, and how do you do that within your programs?
We think that it's very important to design the program with being aware of the context, how the diversity of the territory is working out, how many agents and how is the diversity of these agents, that we have to do a coordination with public administrations, schools, community-based other programs. So it's very important how you design the program with a diagnosis, a previous diagnosis of how other actors are doing social intervention in this area, etc. So for us, it's very important, this thing.
So that it also taps into the second biggest answer, finding the right partners and stakeholders. Is there anybody who wants to say a little bit about how they find stakeholders and and partners in a new region? Well, before we start, I want to thank Ute for stepping in for Stefan Schabernack because he couldn't make it last moment. Ute, thank you for stepping in last moment. Yeah. So Tanguy, could you share a bit about finding stakeholders?
Yes, for us, it's for the stakeholders. For us, it's very important that the mentoring takes place in a territory. It's based on quality that all the
take your time.
All the educational partners take part.
Take
part. Yes.
Okay. Oh, take part.
Of the program.
Yeah.
Not only for the identification.
Yeah, identification.
Identification. Sorry. Yeah. Which is quite important at the base, but also to be sure that the effects of the mentoring for the child will be linked with his problematic and what he can live at school. So stakeholders it's very, very important for us. All the territory has to take part finally, and how we can find them. It's a lot of time. In France, we are lucky because finally there are a lot of actors around a child, around a pupil. So we have to, it's a chance, finally, it's a luck for everybody, but it's also a difficulty because we have to talk to everybody, and we have to do it. We finally do it, and we go to see schools, Education Nationale, we go to see social worker, we go to see all the environment of the
And are the mentees involved in the design of the program, or in a later stage of the program?
All the mentees?
The mentee, the target group, are they involved in this? I see.
We want to focus on the children which are the most disabled.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So this is for us. This is very important.
Yeah. Yeah.
When in France we have enough mentors to go with a lot of children, okay, we will be able to. But for the moment, we want to focus on the children the most disadvantaged. And
Thank you.
This is very important for us.
So, are there mentees involved in the design of your program when you're going to a new territory, or how are they involved?
Not in all of the programs, but the MC Quality Seal, the highest standards in the MC Quality Seal. For example, there is one standard that children has to be trained also.
Okay.
In the first training, also the mentees, not only the mentors, because this first training is important to involve these children and what you want to do in this program. What do you want to change? Because in children it's more difficult than in the adulthood to know about what I want. So for us it's very important this kind of first training before the mentoring relationship starts.
Great, thank you. So one last question to all of you before we move to the, oh sorry, Ute, you want to respond?
Yes, I would like to add some other aspects of these dimensions. We found out pretty much in rolling out these evidence-based or these programs with such good causal evidence that we need an army of ants, because the idea that we as funder and the program together to find sort of these knots in the system, and we only have to convince them, and then they go by themselves. It doesn't work. And so it starts with having a federal system in Germany with 16 states, and then you have all these different communities, and every community functions differently. So we had this idea, we had one experience, well, with this community, it worked really well to have this and this argument, and then they go ahead, and then they speak to the schools, and it works all well. With that model, we started to talk to other communities, and they said, oh no, it doesn't work this way for us. Because our system is totally different and our structure is different and so on. So finally you end up to go to every single community, to every single school in the end. And that of course is incredible if you want to scale up. It doesn't work. So what do you do? And then you have the whole discussion going between quality and quantity. How much money can we invest into scaling up? I mean, how much is there? There's not enough. There's no national funding for scaling up mentoring programs in Germany. And there's hardly enough funding money, and then you sort of end up discussing, is it enough to reach 3,000 mentees per year, or should it be 30,000, but how can it be, and what do we have to do? And of course, it's kind of the discussion you mentioned before between boutique mentoring and discounter mentoring. And if we can have boutique mentoring, should we look at discounter mentoring at all? We don't think so as funder, and the programs themselves as well, but there are some funders who are actually appalled that we don't want to go into discounter mentoring because they say, well, you have to reach more.
Interesting.
Okay, I want to just say one thing about this and the time issue. When we make mentoring so onerous, so difficult in terms of the time commitment, we might be scaring away people that could make a difference in someone's life. So I think we also need to think about what the model is. And there's an interesting model that's emerging in the US, maybe in Europe as well, called flash mentoring. And it's this idea that sometimes one or two conversations with a caring adult can change the life. And so it's all about expectation. If a young person goes into that relationship thinking, oh, this person will be in my life for the next 8 years, they're going to be very disappointed. But if they say, here's a person that you can talk to that may be able to help you with this one thing, then that's a way to scale mentoring by lowering the expectations of what it's going to deliver. If the program is saying, all right, it's got to last 2 years and you've got to meet once a week, then you should be doing something called like screening out people that can't make that commitment rather than trying to. So it really has to do with matching the expectation of the program to what the expectation of the mentor is going in.
Thank you. Thank you. So one last question to you all. Based on your practice, what are the most common obstacles when it comes to scaling quality mentoring? Let's hear one of the practitioners.
When you scale up, there are a lot of obstacles. First of all, the diversity. You have to take account that every community is diverse. And if you want to scale a model in a homogeneous way, it's very difficult to do that because every community, every school, everyone are different and are diverse. So this is like a huge effort for the organizations to scale, taking account this diversity. It's an obstacle to scale for us. Second one, it's like the risk factors working with different stakeholders and different agents in this community, because you need public administrations to do the work, but also they have rules or they have different ways to relation with your mentoring program. So you have to deal with these factors to be able to scale.
Yeah.
So for us, it's very important to take in account these things.
Because every contract is different. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Ute?
I think I named some obstacles just now, but maybe I can add that we came to I think we're coming to the point, and actually I have a sort of learning journey behind me in the last 10 years from, well, when there's causal evidence for one program, we should scale that program up to whole of Germany. That was the start of my journey. And now I'm at the point where I say, okay, we have these very good programs, and we have so many smaller, local, regional, and other programs. And of course, the answer for Germany, at least, is not to scale up one or two, but to scale up all of them and to empower them and to strengthen these small programs who are always there, also already there in the regions, in the communities, and so on. And that's why we founded the umbrella organization for Germany, because that's our goal, to to start with that, or to go along with that now, and hopefully it helps to run over the obstacles.
Yeah, thank you for your valuable insights, everyone. We have questions from the audience, and I saw one just before my phone started making noises. And people are very curious of the role of technology when it comes to scaling quality mentoring. And I know, Jean, you are working with it, but I'm also curious, before we tap into that, of the other panel members on their opinion, do you have experience with working with technology and scaling up mentoring?
Yes, I know that some of our mentoring programs stepped into online mentoring, so the meetings are really taking place online. That, of course, is kind of a special variation, I think. But what they found out, many of them, is that they transferred their processes into online tools. So they started to have the first talks with the mentors online, and to build up a platform where they can apply and put in certain information. And they save a lot of amount of time through these technological helps or the system. And then the meetings between mentor and mentee still take place in real life, but the whole surrounding the structure around us is very much supported by technology.
Nice. Jean, could you elaborate a little bit about your vision on the role of technology in mentoring?
Yes.
Thanks, Ute.
This,
Oh, it's the still technology. Yeah.
I think sometimes we equate, as you were just saying, that technology means online mentoring, that the human touch is lost. And I don't think so at all. I think that it is really just a tool. Every program uses probably an accounting software, or they might use, a client management software like Salesforce. This is another piece of software that my team, my sister, and I have developed as a result of writing Older and Wiser. I felt like there really was a role for technology in, first of all, being able to figure out what the goal of the relationship is. We have something called Mentor Pro, which I can talk to you about. We have a stand at lunch or afterwards, and we'll be presenting about it tomorrow. So I won't go into too much depth. So I'm just going to talk generally that it can be used to help manage programs. So it can be a client relationship management that is specific toward mentoring. You can look and see how every one of those relationships is working. When I was a case manager for a year, I spent almost all my time just trying to find, oh, did you meet? Well, now it can all be automated. It saves time, and it enables you to focus on the relationship, actually, because you're spending less time trying to track relationships. It's all automated. The other thing is the role of data. If you can aggregate all the data, and we can talk about like being able to have questionnaires, being able to aggregate the intensity of the meeting and how much they like each other, and even do natural language processing on the conversations. There's so much that you can do with relationship science and technology that is going, I think, to push mentoring toward a more quantitative, scientific way that it will improve processes a lot. And then finally, with the learning, that there's this thing that people talk about just in case learning. It's like you need to fill your mentor with every possible thing about risk, about just in case it comes up. But what technology enables is just in time learning. Oh, I'm working with a newcomer from this country. I'm going to get the training I need for that particular thing. Or I'm working with someone who has severe ADHD. I need training on that. Or with mild depression, so that it's just in time. Just as you walk in to meet with them, you now have the skills and knowledge that you need. So there's just many affordances that you don't get just purely face-to-face. And so I don't think it has to be a negative, and it often is perceived that way. I think it can be an enhancement and not a replacement.
Thank you. And so maybe is there a role for technology in supporting local actions when mentoring organizations branch out? But I could imagine that it could support smaller branches with the training of the mentors and with the support of the mentor. I see Tanguy.
Without technology, I mean, we organize 9,000 mentoring.
Sorry?
We organize 9,000 mentoring, and we scale up to 18,000 in a few months.
And
we
so
couldn't
scaled up in
couldn't have done this without digital tools.
And could
we
you
couldn't. The digital tools allow us to manage the link between duo, so micro human things, and the mass.
Okay, you monitor on a relationship level and on a program level.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and without this, we couldn't have done this.
Oh, okay.
It's very
Crucial.
important, and
Okay.
it's a good way to keep the human relationship, which makes mentoring so rich and high quality.
Yeah.
And to scale up and to
So crucial.
Yeah,
I would say.
of
Okay,
course.
thank you. Yeah.
In
Marina.
Spain, also, most of the organizations that develops mentoring programs are using digital tools to track every match of their relationship, and it's very useful to be able to show in this platform what is happening every week and every time. To monitor, and also to do questionnaires. Like 1 month, for example, to recap information that in the evaluation is very important to do the final evaluation of the program. So for us, it's very useful.
Thank you, thank you. So let's move into the audience. I think we have time for, I'm looking at Fiona, 2 questions.
I don't want to be the strict one, but we have very little time.
1 question.
One question.
1 question, okay.
I'm sorry.
I'm looking around the room. Who has the question for the panel? Don't want to put pressure on you.
We have.
Oh yeah, here. Do you have a microphone already? Can we have a microphone here?
Have a microphone, please? Otherwise,
we'll steal Jeans.
let's see.
Oh,
This one works. Hello. Yeah, this one works. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is a question for the panel and also for Jean. I'm very struck that the conversation about the equilibrium between quantity and quality and the impact of mentoring is always very focused on the individual, that is to say the micro level. And I think that maybe there's something here lacking is a reflection upon scaling up and the impacts on the macro level. That is to say, Ute, you were mentioning that in Germany, all the mentoring programs are very scattered. So it's difficult because you have small things all over. And I work with a FEV in France, and we noticed that sometimes at a school level, for instance, we have, like, let's say in a school, 400 kids, and 100 are mentored by a FEV. And it changes not only the impact on the kids, but on the school. The school climate is better. You could have the same reflection upon the neighborhood, and even on a national scale. The Plan One Youth, One Mentor was designed to be an effective tool upon school dropout in France. And I see that there's few research about that. It's too bad.
Jean, yeah.
Well, I will say that if we had more friendly policies, we wouldn't need as much mentoring. Even things like reducing child poverty. In the US, we had, for a short time, a period where we had a tax benefit that reduced child poverty by 50%, and then the Republicans stopped that, and now there's more need for mentoring. So I do think that we have to think about what we're doing as maybe further downstream than some of the real prevention, which is having fair policies that protect children and families and reduce inequality. And so I really appreciate that.
So one last sentence from everyone. Any last remarks? Has everything been said? No? Okay, thank you. Can I have a big applause for the panel members? Yeah. Nice, thank you. Yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
It's good cup, bad cup here.
So Fiona, let's move on. Thank you, thank you. Nice. So now we've reached the end of the morning plenary already. Thank you very much for all your questions, for your interest, and for participating in the morning session. You can now grab a cup of coffee before we move to the workshops, right? I think you have another announcement.
And yesterday we had an exceptional weather conditions. Sorry for those who were a bit cold. We can't control everything. We can't control the weather, but we can adapt. So this is why instead of having the lunch in the patio outside, we are moving it inside. So when you go to the team, they are moving everything and change everything in less than 12 hours. But so yeah, instead of having it outside, you will have it just right outside when you go out of the auditorium. You will there be able to discover our exhibitors and our sponsors. You will find Mentor Pro, you will have Devo Team, you will have Pastec, and we invite you to connect and explore among our exhibitors. You will see them in 4 different areas we have created for you. The first one is technology-driven solutions, where you will see our sponsors. The second one is quality and support networks, where you will find umbrella organizations, quality systems, seals. The third one is cross-border collaboration with different countries that together created programs or even Erasmus Plus projects. And then a fourth one, which is program community junction. You can browse around and discover programs especially from the French community. That was one of the outcomes, takeaways that you want to have from this summit. So enjoy
So, and if you forgot which workshops you signed up for, you can scan the QR code on your name tag, or you can see it in the app. And you have 15 minutes to move to your location. So please grab a cup of coffee and go to the workshop spaces. Thank you.
See you later.